All right, it says we are live here, and
Woo.
I don't actually know unless you in the chat tell us. Can you tell us if we're live? Just say like, yeah, what's up? I see a lot of like hand emojis. Hello, hello. Okay, cool. All right, yeah, this is working. We are live. Hello, I am George Nguyen, Director of SEO Editorial here at Wix. We're gonna go through the motions and all that. We're gonna wait a little bit for more of our attendees to come in. We're gonna get this a full house going there. I see people popping off in the chat. Tell us where you're from, and also just banter with you for a little bit before we get started here. I have with me Crystal Carter, and of course, our today's webinar expert, Ashley Segura. Say hello.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, everyone. My co-hosts know how difficult it was for me to get here. It was a long time coming. So thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Ashley, for joining us.
Yeah, so happy to be here. Talk about
A little
helpful
bit
content.
of my dark humor with Ashley in the back room before this started. I was like, it would be really a feel bad if this webinar didn't go to plan. Because as Crystal said, she was having technical issues. Like, and she's the only person that's actually in her own home office. I'm in my mom's kitchen right now. I've asked her to stay in her bedroom so I can do this. I'm in San Jose, California. Ashley, where are you coming in live from?
I'm in Munich, Germany. I just finished speaking at SMX Munich and literally booked it back to my hotel room, and I'm here. Made it.
Back to back to back.
And I'm tuning in from my home office where I normally do all of my webinars. And so yeah, we're doing our best, but we're all good, and it's great to see people from Quebec, from Germany, also in Germany.
Awesome.
We've got someone saying, is there a recording? Guess what? You're watching the recording now. So you are on the YouTube link. It will be at this YouTube link later, and you can enjoy it later on. I've got someone from Cleveland. Shout out to Cleveland. I used to go to school in Ohio, so that's cool as well. Cambridge, Ontario. I've been to Cambridge in England, but not Cambridge, Ontario. And someone from Los Angeles, which is good to see. We've got the West Coast represented here. All West Coast folks on this
all
webinar,
West
actually.
Coast. Yeah, California.
Nice.
Over here.
I'm here for it.
You're in. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nice.
No, it's good. It's good. Wonderful. Cool. So I guess when we'll get going in just a little while. We've got 350 folks tuned in. This is great to see y'all. And stuff. We've had a lot of great signups, and I think that this is a great topic really for businesses that are working with small businesses that are working, at small businesses, people who are working across other teams as well. I think there's some great actionable tips that Ashley's going to be able to share with us. So I'm super excited about that. Shall I share the slides?
Let's do it.
Well, okay, let me get going.
See some people from the Bay Area here. Cool. What's
up,
Bay Area people? Yeah.
Okay, so share screen. I'll get going on that one.
Okay, I'm going to begin walking us through some of the logistics here so you can get the very most of what we are about to do. These are also going to be on screen in a moment, but I'm just going to tell you because why delay any further? So yes, this webinar is being recorded. It is available. If you're watching us right now, you're watching us on YouTube. You can just bookmark the link. It'll be right there when you come back. So yeah, that'll be there. You can share it with people. And if you leave, you have to leave early, which is like, kind of a party foul. But if you have to leave early, you can save the bookmark. Please ask questions in the chat. There are a lot of people in the chat. I will do my very best. But in terms of asking questions, and this goes for every webinar that you attend here, make sure that you provide enough context and specificity. We need details for your questions. We don't perhaps even understand your business. And if you are writing it, keep in mind that I might not be reading it at the point in time that the person's speaking. So if you make it ambiguous, what you're referring to, your question is probably not going to be asked live. We will take breaks here and there to answer a few questions, and then we will have Q&A at the very end as well. We have webinars every single month. Next month is going to be pretty exciting too. We're doing conversational search, but this month, March, helpful content update with Ashley Segura. But you can learn all about our webinars at wix.com/SEO/learn/webinars. I feel like I'm talking really loudly, Ashley. I never wear headphones, but again, I'm in my mom's kitchen, so like, you just like let me know, right? Okay,
I think
let's.
you're good. Audio solid.
Okay, chat. Let me know. I know you guys are brutal, so let me know if I'm being too loud. Okay, cool. Let me get to the kind of the introductions here. I want to tell you about who's speaking, but also I want to get Crystal. Can you get back on here? I want to introduce you properly now that we have everyone. There we go.
Hi.
Okay, cool. So I'm just hosting, moderating. You're going to be hearing from Crystal Carter, head of SEO communications here at Wix Studio with me. And she is joined by our, primary spotlight guest this month, Holy Grail. We are not worthy, Ashley Segura.
Too kind, too kind.
Head of content at ContentYum. Okay, I think that brings us through everything. I will see the rest of you in the chat, and I will be back later during the Q&A. So I'm going to hand off to Crystal now.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, George, for that very gracious introduction. We just do a couple of moving around. Just a second. And thank you to everyone for joining us here today. Okay, so got there. Going to bring that back on. Okay, so as George said, we're joined today by Ashley Segura, who's joining us from SMX Munich. She's going to be talking to us today about the helpful content update. I first talked to Ashley about this months ago in October, and she was like, I've helped lots of people through this. I've helped lots of clients through all of this, and we've got some great outcomes. And I thought, you know what, people need to hear about this, and I would love to bring this to our webinar audience. So gracious that and happy that she has. And not only has she got the webinar for you today, but she also has written up a great article here, which you can find on the Wix SEO Learning Hub right now. So without further ado, I'm going to let Ashley get started with her presentation.
Awesome. Crystal, anyway, I'm able to take over screen share?
Yeah, sure. No worries. So I'm going to remove mine if you want to add your screen share to it.
Fun tech issues. Not an
We got
option
it?
to add it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if you want, I can just whiz through them as we go along. Is that all right?
Okay.
Okay.
Not the most ideal, but okay. All right. So
Okay.
we're going to break down what happened during the helpful content update. Basically, a lot has happened since there. So if you want to go over to next slide. So Google did the helpful content update to try and attack spam essentially and create content that is quote unquote going to be more helpful to users, really making sure that they're having a much better user experience and making sure that the content that is being shown is actually hitting what you're saying that you're going to be doing. So that's where this whole people first content came into play and helpful content. For a while, we've been doing SEO best practices that haven't really been focused on quote unquote helpful content. A lot of it has been very traditional, old school style content optimization, and a lot of which has been over optimization. So instead of actually helping users with the content that we've been creating, we've been over optimizing and really burying the information that users are looking for. So HCU was Google's way of like, let's fix this, let's clean all this up. Now, if we can go over to next slide. This is essentially the timeline. So August 25th, Google announced that there's going to be an algorithm update called the HCU. And the purpose was so that people are going to see more original, helpful content. Then December 5th, 2022, rolled out the first update. Fast forward almost a year later, September 14th, this was the second HCU update, and this was when a lot of brands really started to see impact. And this is where we see a lot of those bar charts where like traffic was here or even somewhat stable, then it started to crash. And then in March 2024, the helpful content update became part of Google's core ranking systems. And so then we saw even more crashing going down. And so how do you know if you were affected? I mean, by now, most everyone knows if you were affected by looking at SEO tools. You can identify this through SEMrush. You can also go into Google Analytics and Google Search Console. And inside of SEMrush, if you're looking at the traffic trends, they'll have little Google icons at the bottom every single time an update was released. So usually if you start to see anything change with your traffic around that update period, it's usually because of that update. Now, granted, there were a lot of brands that saw great things come from the helpful content update, like the Reddits of the world. They saw their charts go up versus down. And so not everyone looks at HCU as such a bad thing, but for most of us normal brands, it was pretty damaging. And HCU hit a lot of brands that were publishing original helpful content. They weren't doing spammy practices. Some of them were over optimizing unintentionally, but the content was still very helpful content. So it left a lot of us wondering, okay, well, what the heck is this helpful content that Google specifically is looking for, and how can I create it? And then how do I then optimize it? And so Google gave a somewhat arguably helpful definition of how you can self-assess your content to determine if it's actually helpful or not. And so Google wants you to ask questions like, does your content provide original info, reporting, research, or analysis? AKA, do you have anything unique to provide to this conversation? And if so, are you using any data? Are you using any stats? Where are you getting this information from? Or are you just saying that this is factual because it's your opinion? Like, where is this validated, essentially? And then, does the content provide a substantial, complete, or comprehensive description of the topic? AKA, are you really fleshing out everything there is to need to know about this topic? Like, what are users really trying to figure out behind this? What's their intent with this? And are you meeting that intent? And then, does the content provide insightful analysis or interesting info that's beyond the obvious? AKA, is it unique? Is this a variation of the topic? Are you providing a unique angle on something that's been talked about 1,000 times? I mean, 7.5 million blog posts are published every single day. So are you just contributing to that 7.5 million, or are you making it special? Are you giving a unique perspective on it? And then if the content draws on other sources, does it avoid simply copying or rewriting those sources and instead provide substantial additional value and originality? Again, there's so many patterns in these questions, like originality. They want something unique. They want data in there, but they also want you to be citing your sources. So in practice, that means that content needs to, one, it needs to really satisfy search intent. It needs to address the reason why someone's searching for something and then meet them there instead of force them into a different pattern. It needs to offer a really unique perspective and point of view. And then you need to be able to flex your expertise and authority, why you even can contribute to this conversation and really talk about this topic. And so this is where the EEAT framework comes into play. And like, let's be honest here, HCU was almost 3 years ago, and EEAT has like been a part of the conversation for years now. And we are still talking about this stuff. Like, this is March 2025, and we're talking about what helpful content is. And that's because we're not basing new content strategies on the EEAT framework. And so we need to kind of step back with our content strategies and focus on creating content that does flex your expertise, demonstrating your subject matter knowledge, what your experience is by leaning into real world examples. So what is your experience on this topic, not someone else who already published their experience? And where's your trustworthiness in this? Can someone really trust you? Like in the article that I put together for this, I gave an example of how if I started off this article telling you that the helpful content update was published in January 1, 2020, you immediately would not trust me because the helpful content was published years later. And so there needs to be a trustworthy aspect to the content that you're producing. And then finally, the authoritativeness. So building your industry reputation through brand mentions, through link building, through speaking engagements, through good old digital PR to really emphasize that you or your client has the right to talk about this subject matter.
And I think on this one, do you find with clients that they sometimes struggle to be able to evidence it? I find like they'll say, well, we are trustworthy. We do have authority. And I find that I'm like, yeah, that's great, but you have to put it on your website. Do you find that you need to reiterate that as well?
Yes, definitely. Clients and just us as individuals, we're not always great at talking about ourselves and what our strengths are. So this is where it really helps, like when you do ICP exercises with your client, ideal customer persona exercises, do that for them as well. Like, who are they? And start with the basic demographics, like what's their name, their age, their location. And this will slowly get them comfortable talking about what their story is and what their journey, say, like a dermatologist, how long they've been a dermatologist for, what practices they've worked at, what certifications that they have. Like literally interview them as if you're trying to figure out the ICP of them. And that kind of helps them get a little bit more comfortable talking about themselves and their experience. And worst case scenario, if you're like, I don't have time to talk to them, I don't have the abilities to do this, you can always scrape some information from an about page, give it into ChatGPT and be like, hey, can you organize this in a manner that really flexes who this person is, what their experience is, why they can be trusted with this information? And that's at least a good starting point to help identify and put together like author bios, which we're going to get to later.
Wonderful. That's great advice. Um, and yeah, this was a great piece of content that came out as well.
So I just added this very last minute because today at SMX Munich, Mike King had a phenomenal presentation about what's happening with search and all the lovely things to come, essentially. And he referenced this article by Tom Capper that really identified what some of the biggest winner, loser, and neutral patterns were from helpful content. When Moz went through and kind of looked at the average domain authority and brand authority of sites, there was a pattern of the best winners had good domain authority, good brand authority, and not high spam score. So you can take what you will from this information. Of course, studies are studies, but it is interesting to see patterns like this that, DA and brand authority, they aren't ranking metrics, but they do help with your EEAT when it comes to your content and when it comes to really validating why you have the right to talk or why your client has the right to produce content around this. And so as you're developing your content strategy and figuring out like, okay, I'm going to go write a ton of helpful content, well, you really need to make sure that you have good DA and that you have really well-established brand authority as well. It's content strategies aren't just about creating new topics or optimizing your existing content anymore. Like that is not solely it. It's more of this whole digital PR play. Everything is coming together now. And it's really interesting to see how, a lot of what traditional marketing used to be, and then we got siloed into SEOs, content, social advertising, and the lucky ones who get to do all of that together. Like, no, it really is all coming into play in digital PR. How your brand is analyzed, how much brand authority you have online does help with how much your content is seen and displayed. And so this is a EAT checklist as you're going through to kind of figure out like, okay, does my content really represent this? Am I approaching this whole strategy correctly? And so Wix Studio has some really good templates to help you create really fleshed out about us and profile pages. So again, if your client's like, I don't want to talk about myself, how do I do this? The templates are a great way to start. Having social bars on your website for that social proof and social engagement definitely helps. Social links in your structured data, as well as reviews and testimonials on your website. If you can get video reviews, it is so helpful to have on your site, but then also have the transcript below. So as crawlers are identifying the website, they're able to see what people are actually saying, especially with LLMs now, language learning models that are trying to identify if you are an authority in the mix. They're taking patterns within sentences and piecing them together to identify like, okay, this dermatologist is a great dermatologist in Munich, Germany, because this one review is talking about how this customer had an experience with this great dermatologist in Munich, Germany. Like all of these things are coming together and really playing a big role. You want to write content around your specific expertise and create pillar pages around your seed topics. So for a dermatologist, they're going to want to create a bunch of different pillar pages about how to take care of your skin, things that you should avoid, things that you should do, products that you love that they recommend that they don't recommend. Like there's a bunch of pillar pages to support your overarching seed topics. And then, for lack of better terms, PR the crap out of yourself and for your clients. Get as many digital PR mentions as you can get. And this isn't just traditional link building. This is also in-person events. This is blog exchanges. This is the webinar that I'm doing right now is helping my personal digital PR. Like try and find different opportunities that are going to make sense for your client. This could even be brand mentions. This could be author pages or guest posts on other site, or if say your client has published a book, like say those things, emphasize that. And there's a ton more that we're going to cover.
I think these are such great holistic tips for EEAT on a website, and I think that what sometimes folks overlook is that it has great knock-on effect for across your web presence. So you know, if you're doing PR, you'll get more links, and it builds your authority, and they're more likely to share your content and that sort of thing as well. So these are great tips. I think George might have some questions, so I'm going to bring George on, and I'm going to slide to the back. Are we good, George? We got some questions from the audience?
Yes, we got some questions. Let's try to do them in the order that they were received, and I'm going to be answering some of them in the chat too, so please be patient while I try to do that. The one's best, like I want everyone to know, we're going to answer here. We're talking about authorship a little bit later, right?
Sorry, it cut out right at the beginning of your question.
Sorry, we're talking about authors a little bit later, right, Ashley?
Yes. Yeah, we're going to dive into
I'm
other
going to leave
pages,
this
which
one
be
for
included.
later. Okay. So this one I thought was pretty pertinent to what you said most recently. Can you give us specific examples of what over-optimizing looks like?
Yeah, definitely. So of course, keyword stuffing, that's the most well-known, and that's you're putting the keyword in every single heading, you're putting it throughout multiple paragraphs. You're not actually even providing real information. You're just trying to check a box. I also see a lot of over-optimization tactics when you're trying to hit specific word counts and you drag the content on. Actual optimization is making it so easy for the user to find exactly what they're trying to figure out. And that's why it's so important to understand the user intent behind a specific topic or keyword before you even write it. And that way you can have jump to buttons at the top to help them easily find exactly what they're looking for. And then if they want additional information, to have that outlined versus having a very poor heading structure, trying to just have a 3,000 word count just to have the most words on the topic, when that's not helping anyone. That's not helping users, especially if it only takes 150 words to answer the question. Don't drag things out. Don't hide your leads, as they would say in journalism.
I would say also from, obviously we're practitioners, some of us on this webinar attending are also business owners, but from a consumer point of view, since we're talking about someone else going on your page and really that matters, I think some of the dead giveaways for me as a user have been like, why is this a heading? Like just randomly, you'll see like text that's larger than all other text, and it's just a rehashing or something synonymous to the keyword from the page. And you're just like, why is this here? And being repetitive. So like, yeah, keyword stuffing is repetitive, but then you see like synonymous forms of words. Like it's super apparent for anything in like the hair industry where it's not done well, because everything is suddenly hydrating and moisturizing and kinky. And like I've worked on a page recently and I'm like, did I over optimize it? That's a great question. I think we should get right back to it because we're going to naturally answer some of these questions as we go along. And I'm going to answer what are pillar pages in the chat right now because I don't want to take like this entire time. And we have a great article on it.
Awesome. Perfect.
I jumped in on the pillar pages. So I started talking about shoes. Basically, a pillar page, I'll say it now. A pillar page is like if you had a topic or a website about shoes, let's say your pillar page was like ultimate guide to shoes, and in it you talk about all the different types of shoes. And then on the rest of your blog, you might have one page about high tops, one page about sandals, one page about knee-high boots or something. And so your pillar page would be the pillar for that content, piece, and that would work well. And yes, well done, George, for linking to that. So yes, I'm good to jump. We'll jump back into the
wait. Yeah. This is the point where I ask everyone to kindly give us a thumbs up. We're coming to you from 3 different parts in the world. My mom is sitting in her room quietly so I can do this. So from my mom, from my dear old mom, thank you.
Thanks, George Mom.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. All right. Okay, Ashley, let's get back into it.
Sweet.
So here we go. So how do we optimize after the HCU, Ashley?
Great question. Okay, let's get into it, because there's a lot of ways to do this correctly and a lot of ways to do this incorrectly, which over-optimizing is definitely one of the ways. Perfect. Okay, so best SEO content tips post HCU. Create content for your users, which if you're on LinkedIn at all, you're like, cool, that's great. What does that really mean? I hear that all the time. It's kind of fluffy. It doesn't really mean a whole lot. Well, AirPod down. You all can still hear me, right? Okay, good. Creating content for users is identifying topics that your users are actively searching for right now. And in order to do that, you can go to forums, you can see what conversations are people actively having, and then go and do some keyword search volume research to figure out, okay, not only are these conversations happening on social media, they're happening on forums, we're getting these questions from our sales team, but go in and see what these keywords look like from a search volume standpoint, understand what the intent is behind this, and those are some ways that you start to actually create content for users that are actively searching right now. The second is to identify topics based on your audience and not volume. So yes, you want to check that search volume bucket. You want to make sure that you're targeting topics that people are actively searching for, but you also need to think of who your audience is and what they need help with. So if you have access to a customer success team, or if you have a sales team, or even better, if you have a contact form on your website, take the last month of content form requests that you've gotten, export all the messages out, throw them into ChatGPT or Claude, or insert your favorite AI tool. Be like, hey, what is the sentiment that these questions or these messages that we're getting, what is the sentiment? What is the commonalities? What questions are people asking the most? And then what are some topics that would help address these questions? Lots of times as brand owners, or when we're working with our clients, we're like, we totally understand what this business does, but 99% of the time, users and potential customers don't fully get it, and they're not fully talking in the same language that you do. So it's really helpful to analyze these customer questions and potential customer questions that you get, throw them into AI, and better understand what content opportunities you have right there to create helpful content to address these things in the future. The third is to guide users with internal links. So as you're creating these new pieces of content, think about the user flow. So cool, you can check the box of fully addressing a specific question that a user has, and you created a new piece of content on it. But where should they go next? Not back to Google, not back to the search results. They should go onto a relevant page. And Crystal gave a great example of the pillar pages. If someone's looking for shoes and they're looking for sandals, they might also be interested in, oh boy, I hate that I'm saying this, Crocs, like another type of sandal, a subversion of a sandal. Forgive me in advance. Don't blow me up in chat. I apologize. But that's just an example so that you could see, like, what's another relevant piece of content that you can take them to based on their intent. If their intent is to buy a new pair of sandals, give them the different opportunities of sandals. So show them the different types of sandals that would make sense for them based on where they're at in that journey. And then optimize your author bios. This is going to help with your EEAT. I know it's kind of hard to think that, like, okay, my author bio is separate. My client's author bio this is a separate concept than this sandal article or sandal pillar page that I'm creating, how is this related? Well, this is where the EEAT comes into place. And so if your client is the best shoe seller in, again, Munich, Germany, that needs to be said within their author bio. So then your content is more likely to be shown. And also the expertise is there. Like you clearly have won awards for the shoes that you've made, for the lovely croc designs that you have. I hope you guys get the idea that I'm trying to present here. And then 5 is prioritizing content updates over content volume. So I'm gonna dive into this a little bit more later, but updating your current content is definitely worth the resource versus constantly producing a ton of new content. And I know we have AI now, and so a lot of corporations are just mass producing content. And they're like, this is the way that we're gonna rank. There's a lot I can go into here, which is like its own presentation, and a lot of companies are using AI to mass produce content to generate more traffic. Well, spoiler alert, traffic is no longer the big metric that we are going to be aiming for. We are actually going to be analyzing user journeys to see how do we get them to convert? What does that look like from the informational intent all the way down to the navigational intent? So instead of focusing on mass producing a bunch of not so helpful content, let's fix the content that we have and make sure we're providing a really good user journey to get them to close, to get them to purchase, to get them to fill out the content form or to sign up for the email list, whatever your call to action is. When it comes to creating content for users, I want to really emphasize 3 really important things. And that's first, understanding the intent behind why someone's searching for something. So you need to know what stage they're in, what info they want out of it, and then package your content medium into that appropriately. So for example, someone who is in the informational stage and is trying to figure out which shoe company is the best shoe company for them to buy a new sandal from, having a comparison or a comparison how-to guide is going to be the most helpful for them to be able to see, well, this company has this pros and cons, this company has this pros and cons. You really want to think about how you're packaging your content, whether it's into a blog post, a short video. Infographics are still hot. Don't knock them until you try them. Whether it's a comparison guide, like there's all sorts of different content mediums that make sense based on where a user is in their journey. For example, if someone is in the commercial intent stage and they're looking for a very specific product or service, or they're in a navigational stage, this is where we're going to see users at a lot more. They have gone to AI, they've asked AI what the best shoe companies are, why they're the best shoe companies. Now they're going to Google because now they've gotten a couple brand mentions. So they're looking for a specific brand or now a very specific type of shoe that they want to do a little bit more research. They're almost there, but since so many users are using LMs and AI for research, as well as in concurrent with search engines, we're seeing a lot more of the traffic and the user intent coming at that commercial and navigational stage. So we want to make sure that we're creating content that addresses them at the stage where they're at.
This is so fantastic. You're getting some really good information there. I don't know why this one's popping up. On this one, I just wanted to jump in. There was somebody who, from your discussion, was saying, where can I find this keyword volume that you were talking about? Where can I find these topics? If you're a Wix Studio user or a Wix user and you are interested in finding out topics as you're creating your blogs, we have keyword research tools built into the tool set, into your SEO tools, and they are connected directly to SEMrush. And it will give you information about shoes, for instance. I don't know why it ended up being a shoe webinar. But yeah, it gives you information on not only the trends of those keywords and like whether or not people are actually searching for them potentially in your audience, but it also talks about that user intent that Ashley was alluding to. So you can have a look at the kinds of topics that might be relevant, and you can also see the kind of intent. And if the intent of the keyword that you're trying to get matches the intent of the users that you're trying to connect with. So it's great to be able to put some of Ashley's great advice to work using some of the tools at Wix Studio. And with that, I shall jump back and let Ashley continue.
Okay, so you figured out how to do intent, and if you have Wix Studio, then you're even blessed with that. If not, SEMrush has it. Now you need to address the needs and provide exactly what the user wants. So don't bury the info. I will keep telling you this. Instead, have a very clear heading structure with shorter paragraphs, getting straight to the point. This is also really important as LLMs are trying to figure out information that they're going to populate as people are using AI to research more and more things. So they're also looking at this content, and the more that you bury the information, and especially in really big paragraphs, the less likely that they're going to be like, you are the best shoe company and I am going to recommend this. So for users, for search engines, for AI, for LLMs, for all of it, make it so easy to get to the point, as well as relevant information on what should come next. I like to use SEMrush's topic research tool here to really identify the who, what, when, where, why, how questions that people are actively searching for around a specific keyword. And it'll also side by side show you the top 10 current ranking articles. So it kind of gives you a snapshot of how you should package this information as well. Like if most of everything's a how-to or a guide or a 101, that's a good indicator that you should probably package this information similar to that, but of course, with your unique angle. And then user experience. So you need to be using jump to buttons. You need to have bullet points, internal links to related content. Make your content so incredibly helpful and focus on addressing exactly what the user needs and meeting their intent. You want to optimize for a natural engagement. You don't want to optimize for, I hope they stay on my site for the next 20 minutes and go to 50 other pages. I mean, granted, sure, that's great, as long as you have content to take them from one journey to the next that makes sense. But if they're looking for shoes in particular and you drop in a bunch of references to shorts, that's not going to be a great user journey. They're not ready to buy shorts yet, and you probably shouldn't assume that they are. So to identify topics that your audience actually needs and is looking for, as I mentioned earlier, going to discussions and doing forum research is a great place to kind of put the little sneaky marketer hat on and take a backseat and see what are people talking about around a specific topic. So say you have an idea for a new piece of content that you want to write, I would take the primary topic for that or the primary keyword. I would go to Reddit, I'd go to Quora, I would go to Facebook groups. Facebook groups are still popping off for so many industries. Like it is very interesting to see how Facebook groups are still alive. And go into the search bar, drop the topic or the keyword in there, and start to understand what are people talking about? What's the sentiment behind what they're talking about? Are people angry about this conversation? Are they excited about it? Do they have brands that they're recommending and maybe your brand isn't in there? Like start to understand the conversation behind the conversation. Performing a content gap analysis is also going to help you find topic ideas that your audience wants, but your competitors aren't ranking on page 1 for. They're not fully covering. So you can use keyword research tools. SEMrush has a keyword gap analysis tool. I know a lot of different SEO tools have their version of a content gap analysis. And that exercise is basically identifying content ideas, new topic ideas that your competitors are ranking on, pages 2 to 5. It's clearly a hot topic. There's enough search volume there, but they're not on page 1. So this is where you can come in with your expertise, your authority. You can contribute something unique to the conversation, make it extremely helpful because now you know how to do that, and publish a new piece of content. And then finally, sales and customer insights. Like I mentioned before, connect with your customer facing teams to really identify what the most frequently asked questions are, or what are the new questions? What are the unique questions that people are asking? That is a gold mine of information. And when you're doing exercises like this, You don't always have to go and double check what the search volume is. You already know that your target demographic wants this content. They want this information. They're literally asking you for it on Facebook or on TikTok or in your contact form. So they're most likely not the only ones who need this information. Make it so easy for them to get it by producing a new piece of content that addresses this, or updating an old piece of content to better fit this package.
And this was
Another thing that
what.
you,
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead,
This was a
Crystal.
slide I added. A slide I added in. Sorry, jump in. So yeah, this
Yeah,
is
no,
from
you're good.
Amazon. So go ahead.
Yeah, I love that you put this in, because like another thing that you can do is literally looking at Amazon or e-com websites and see what are the Q&A sections that people are asking, and you can always see how many like have a lot of answers to them. That kind of is a good indicator that there's traction there. Like these are little hacks that are, it's so traditional marketing, and as content marketers and SEOs and business owners, like the gold mine of what you should be creating for helpful content is out there. Go to these kinds of e-com sites and places and look at the most commonly asked questions, and then go and create a blog post on it, or create a video on it, or create a how-to on it.
And I think that when you were talking about content gap analysis, and this is one of my
Mhm.
favorite ones for like competitor gaps. So if it says that
Mhm.
like, oh, this minivan that I was buying doesn't have enough cup holders, and let's say your minivan has more cup holders, then you can be like, we're not a minivan with no cup holders. We've got lots of cup holders, that sort of thing. So if you have solutions to the things that people are complaining
Mhm.
about from your competitors, that's a great win for you and your brand. And I think that yeah, the content gap analysis is huge for this and for being helpful.
Oh yeah.
And just to shout out before I duck out and let Ashley take over again, we have a template around this as well. If you're not sure where to start, we have a template that shows lots of different places, like the Reddit, Quora, etc., that Ashley mentioned. It's a Google sheet that you can download, and you can fill it in and work with the content that you've got from your users as well. Okay, I'll take it.
Awesome. Okay, so another way to be really helpful with your content is internal links, which I've mentioned a few different times. And this is where you're really mapping out a user journey that makes sense. Like these are content pages that support your pillar pages. And in order to kind of identify what would make a great pillar page, the resource was dropped at some point throughout the show, but you can also use tools like Answer the Public and drop in your seed keyword and see what are other ideas that would be worth creating similar content for, to add as internal links into this pillar page. You can also support your pillar pages by linking to secondary topics. So secondary topics are very similar to pillar pages. They're basically topics that support something. So for example, a gluten-free baker can have secondary topics about gluten-free baking techniques. Let's say this gluten-free baker usually only publishes recipes around gluten-free baking. Well, a great secondary topic would be gluten-free baking techniques, things to brands that are gluten-free friendly that you should shop for on a regular basis. The best grocery stores that offer gluten-free items. Have what you will. And SEMrush's topic research tool is a really good tool to kind of help you figure out this information and what secondary topics would be really relevant. And then finally, you can build your authority through topical expertise by interlinking to really show the depth of your knowledge on a specific topic. So this is developed through your content strategy and really creating these pillar and secondary topics, and identifying what would make the most sense for your client or for your specific business. Screaming Frog will also help you do this. If you perform a content audit, you can identify what kind of internal links you currently have, and what your user journey looks like right now, and how you can improve that with either new content or improving the internal linking mapping to your existing content. So this is an example of how you can do internal links. There's a lot of different mind mapping and a lot of great SEO tools that will show you what your top linked pages are, how many times you have them linked, and this is also where you can figure out new ways to guide users to really create this whole helpful content. The point of all of these exercises is to make your content actually helpful and to provide a real definition and strategy for you to do so. All right, so the fun author bio optimization. Okay, so to get your author bio really honed in, you want to flex any certifications, any honors and recognitions, how long you have had experience in. And please don't worry if you're like, I'm 3 years in, that's not a big number. It is, it is. Put however many years you or your client has experience in something and flex that, run with that. Any kind of industry contributions that you do, any hands-on examples that you do. So like for that gluten-free baker example, maybe they won a local competition, or maybe they've created over 500 gluten-free recipes. There's a lot of stats that we don't always outline for ourselves just because it's difficult to kind of highlight some of your recognitions and always see that. So try and dig deep and see what certs, what honors, what recognitions you can add to your author bio to really spice it up. And then make it accessible site-wide on the page, but also use the same author bio for all the other different websites that you contribute content to. So I mentioned before on a little content rule that I have when it comes to creating new content versus updating your content. And my rule is 40-60. 40% of your time and resources should be focused on creating new content, while 60% should be focused on updating your current content, fixing your internal linking strategy, making sure it's not over optimized, looking at your heading structure, looking at what's currently ranking and figuring out how can you make this unique. In the article that I put together, I gave an example of braised chicken. If you search for braised chicken, every single braised chicken search result has a unique angle to it. It's like braised chicken with miso, braised chicken, air fryer. Now I'm forgetting all of them, but you get the idea. Like, go to search results and see what's currently populating. You don't need any SEO tools to do that. Just put on your user hat and see what's Google currently ranking, what is unique about it, and what can you add to make your specific content that you've already published unique and special and have a different angle, something different to offer. So to wrap everything up, this was like all sorts of things to throw at you guys, and hopefully you feel a little bit confident going through and creating a new content strategy based on helpful content. And to do that, you want to have a user-centric approach. So understand and address your user intent in every piece of content that you have and that you produce. Don't be afraid to demonstrate that expertise, experience, authority, and trustworthiness, because that is what's going to get you really far these days, especially with language learning models trying to figure out who really is the best at everything. And of course, you want to offer really fresh angles on topics to stand out, have a unique perspective on things, and continue to optimize. Regularly audit your content. I recommend at least once a quarter doing a content audit, and then update your content to make sure it's relevant, it's flexing your expertise and authority, and it's trustworthy.
Thank you so much. It's Q&A time. It has been very busy in the chat. And I'm just going to bring George on the stage. George is our master of Q&A for this session. So I'm going to hand you over to George, if that's all right.
Let's do it. Okay. I thought we should answer some questions in a very certain order here, but I'm trying to find this one. There's so many great questions. Okay. This one is the one. Do you feel that a blog is an essential feature of any business platform? So I want to bring this one up because there's a lot of people asking, service-based businesses, how do you approach that stuff? And I wanted to hear your take. I also have my opinion, but go. Oh yeah, Ashley, they're asking you. Do you feel blog is always necessary?
If you have something worth saying, yes, 100%, because a blog is a place for you to flex that expertise and authority, build out pillar pages, really talk about your specific niche, your industry, and why you're an expert in it. If you don't have anything to contribute to the conversation, if you're just going to use AI to pump out a bunch of content and throw it on a blog and call it a blog post, don't do it. It's not going to help you. If anything, it's going to hurt you, especially as users are getting so good at understanding what is written by AI and what isn't. It's funny, as marketers, for us, it's really easy for us to see, but users are learning so fast because they're using AI just as much as we are these days. And so unless you have something to contribute to a conversation, it's not worth having a blog. But if you do have someone on your team who is an expert within the niche or has experience writing something, it is 100% worth having a blog and will really help your website.
I generally tend to agree. I would say though that, like, look at your business. If you're selling something to someone one time and it doesn't matter if they ever shop from you ever again, or if you get all this performance from 2 pages on your website and they're all landing pages, if the data suggests you're doing well with that one, why would you spend the extra resources unless you know you can definitely recoup that there's return on investment? And additionally, your competitors will tell you a lot. Don't always, you need to know who your competitors are. You might think just because you're a local restaurant, you know, McDonald's is a competitor. And it might be if you are that exact same type of fast food, but generally it's not, because you're local and they're, you know, multinational franchise. But see what your actual competitor is doing. Do they have a blog? How does it benefit them? I think those are the questions you generally need to ask yourself, which is against my own self-interest because I'm a content marketer and this is how I make money. But I got to be honest with you. Don't put out more nonsense into the world if you don't have to. Okay, that's a little bit from me. Let's move on. Let's change it up to topic research. I feel like a lot of people, we answered this at length here, but let's just kind of go over it again. How do you check what people are searching? Just to recap, what are the sources you go to when you're doing topic research, keyword research, whatever you want to label it, Ashley?
Yeah, this is a fantastic question. So I'll take a seed keyword, which that's your primary keyword. So let's take that dermatologist example, a dermatologist in Munich. And I'll go into SEMrush. That's what I like to use for keyword research. There's plenty of SEO tools. There's also Google's free keyword research tool. And I'll put that primary keyword in there. And I'll start to see what are the related keywords. And then I'll go into SEMrush's topic research tool and I'll drop some of those related keywords. And I'll start to see the questions that people are asking, the who, what, when, where, why, how questions that people are asking about this. I'll then take it another step and I'll start to look at the current top 10 ranking articles for each of those questions. Doing all of this, I'm trying to understand what people are searching for and what they're really trying to get, what information they're trying to get out of this. And then you can use tools like Wix's tool or SEMrush's tool to figure out what the user intent behind the search is.
I would also add that, like, let's just say you have no tools, right? You can look at the search result, and, you know, we always say that word keyword because we're practitioners. But if you're a business owner or you're talking purely to business owners, talk to them in topics. What is the topic or the set of words or synonyms that people would use to search you? Is it plumber near me, right? Yeah, that's kind of how I would think about it. Look at what appears on the search results and what the commonalities that your competitors are. Look at the people also ask section. And you can use that to kind of cobble together a cohesive theme for a page that would be relevant, especially if all your competitors have that. But that's one way to go about it if you're trying to do it more intuitively. But the advantage that Ashley's workflow has is very structured, and you get a much more comprehensive view. You might miss something. The tools will help you out along the way. All right, let's move along to the next question. We're kind of running out here on time. I thought this was a very interesting one because it asks about kind of what are we actually doing here? So it appears Google is trying to reward those that are putting forth the most effort on their websites. I have my own way of interpreting this question, but Ashley, go right ahead.
Oh boy. Okay. I mean, Reddit.
I know, right?
Let's just start there. Let's just start there. But that's also a lot on its own. So, okay, let me try and address this. Ideally, we would like to think that Google is rewarding those that are putting forth the most effort on their websites. In reality, a lot of brands that are still writing their own content, they're not using AI, they're trying to optimize it correctly, are still struggling. And the piece of the puzzle that they could be missing is that EEAT. They're not showing enough of their expertise, of the authority. They're writing great content, or they're producing great videos. They're answering the questions that need to be answered, but they're not showcasing that they have the authority to be contributing to this conversation, or that they have enough of a flex to be doing so. And so that's where it's worth kind of integrating with your content strategy that, all right, we need to work on some digital PR before we create any more new content. And we're putting a lot of effort on this new content. Let's put some effort into our digital PR and then start back up our content strategy.
To add to that, definitely. And also, like, if you've gone to school, you had a tricky teacher, right? Like one of those that's like, yeah, this is homework. You're like, really? That's it? And then the next day you turn in the homework and they're like, you totally misunderstood the assignment. Or like, oh, number 8 was a trick question. Number 8's always a trick question. That is Google. So you can put in all the effort, but if you're not meeting Google's criteria, then it doesn't matter at all. That's a huge thing. That's why you're on this webinar, to understand the parameters of those expectations so that you can work within them. It's not just about effort, it's about intentional effort according to what Google says, and then oftentimes even against what Google says, which is what, like, that's why the help content update has been incredibly confusing. So that's why I chose to highlight this question. I think we got time for one more here, and I want to talk, it's kind of a basic one to me, just to me, because I constantly work in content, but I wanted all of you to know because it guides my work consistently. There are several places to add keywords and images, products, pages, files, but what is the correct way to write the keywords and alt text in each place? What do you recommend? So just your general outlook here. We only have about 3 more minutes, Ashley, but how do you want to go about this?
Yeah, definitely. Usually safe rule of thumb is the keyword in the title and keyword in a couple of your headings, but that's about it. You do not need to get crazy wild. Your images, your alt text for your images should be describing what the image is. There's so many times where I'll go through a content audit and I'll see that images are just keyword stuffed and it's not even representing what's in the image. And for users, that puts out a terrible user experience. That's where you're less likely to be showed on page 1. So I'm sure Wix probably has some really good keyword guides, but I would think of your user and see what makes sense, as well as look at the top search results and see where the keyword is displayed in the top 10 current search results. Like literally go to each article and see where the keyword is throughout the post, how many times they're using it. Those are good indicators to kind of start, but remember, you need to be unique. You're not directly copying the competition. That is not going to guarantee you a first spot. And something to add on the last question, and something that I think is really important to note here, is that we are not writing content for Google. With AI, more and more users are using a combination of social media, AI, and search engines to get answers to things and find out information. So when you're creating content, you shouldn't be thinking about how can I optimize this for Google? How can I optimize it for search engines? You should be thinking about where is a user at when they're trying to land on this piece of content? What have they done before? Were they sent here from ChatGPT? Were they sent here from social media? Are they already warmed up and have everything they need, and all I need to do is help them finish that transaction? Like, this is the kind of research that you need to start preparing for, and stop thinking about how can I get traffic from Google, because traffic is no longer going to be the KPI that we're going to be after. It's back to good old traditional marketing, and it's conversion marketing. And so impressions are huge right now, and focusing on creating content that addresses where a user is at in their journey and having helpful content that meets them at different stages of their journey is really going to help be that piece of the puzzle to make sure that your content is seen.
Fantastic. I'm seeing some like chatter about like, oh, service-based businesses, y'all service-based business folk. It's not different. Content is really not different. Yeah, you don't have product landing pages, but you still have people asking about your service, right? Like you can have someone have a question, and I really like to go for high intent questions, right? Like, how do I remove a stripped bolt from a concrete wall? Someone might ask that question. They're never going to do that themselves. They're going to hire you to do it. All you need to do is put up a page about how you get that done and the price. Service-based businesses, think about your service as the product, and that's how you approach the SEO from there. Crystal, you want to come on back so we can all sign off?
Yeah, I've been loving the conversation. There's been some great discussion in the chat about all of this. And one thing that came up was people saying, oh, well, can I still use AI? Yes, you can still use AI. AI can be really, really helpful for creating helpful content. And Google has said that, you know, you can create helpful content with AI. But I think it's like whether or not you can still use your microwave to cook. Like, you know, you want to create something that's nourishing and that's genuinely helpful for your users. And you know, if you follow the frameworks that Ashley set out in this article and in this webinar, then you won't go wrong, even if you're using AI to help you get there. So thank you to everyone for joining us, and thank you so much, Ashley, for making the time. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone, and we will see you next month.
Awesome.